Welcome, LBN readers. This is John Jonah with another episode of Vino Talk. Today, our topic is going to be wine and cheese, and specifically Michigan wine and Michigan cheese. We're going to be featuring and talking about Arturo's Black Star Farm wines and the Remy Picot cheeses from Old European Cheese Company in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Let's get started. Okay, so here are the basics of wine and cheese pairing. Got to remember the three basic principles, and they are pretty easy to remember. Number one is country to country. Number two is style to style, and number three is power to power. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that as we go through these cheeses. Our first selection here is from the Old European Cheese Company. It's one of my favorite cheeses because it represents a cheese from Spain called Manchego. This cheese is called Montoro, and it's made with cow's milk because got more cows than sheep in Michigan, but the style still emulates the style of Montoro, which is a fairly full-bodied cheese, a little bit of weight and texture to it. It's aged about 4 to 6 months, so it's going to have some weight. And it is covered in a rind that lets the cheese mature. Our pairing with this is Arturo's Cabernet Franc. Why I have chosen this is because Cabernet Franc is a wonderful Michigan grape that is getting all kinds of good reviews, and we find that the Michigan climate for this grape really works. Power to power means that when you have a stronger cheese, you want a stronger wine. So in the case of Montoro, because it has a Spanish background, it goes better with red wine than white wine. That's our power to power principle. So in this particular case, we've also done a little bit of accoutrements, which means little side dishes that go well with cheese. I strongly encourage this. In this case, we paired this Montoro cheese with Marcona almonds, which are beautiful almonds from a small region of Spain that go great with cheese. This, I think, is a great combination. Okay, our next pairing is one of my favorite cheeses from the Old European Cheese Company, and that's Saint Rocco Brie. Why do I like this cheese? Because it's 70% butterfat. Don't worry, you're going to have wine with it. But the beauty of this cheese is that it just emulates the French Brie so perfectly that you could never tell the difference. The pairing with this is Arturo's Dry Riesling. Michigan is noted for Riesling because we're a cold weather climate state, and Riesling does wonderful here. The other factor with Riesling and why we chose it with this cheese is because it has higher acidity. This acidity kind of cleans your palate as you're having the cheese. Plus, we've thought of a number of wonderful applications for Brie. You can serve it with Old Mission black figs, you can serve it with apricots, fresh fruit, and a beautiful, beautiful fig mustard. My idea is that this wine is a wonderful match with this cheese, and made in Michigan. Let's go on to the next. Okay, our next pairing is a beautiful smoked Gouda with a Pinot Gris. Unlike cigarettes, smoke is good in cheese, but it has to be done properly and blended correctly. So this cheese is slightly smoked. It has a wonderful paste, by the way, that's the word for the texture of the cheese, meaning this cheese has a nice creaminess to it. We combine this with Arturo's Pinot Gris, another grape that does well in Michigan. This is actually Pinot Grigio. So if you're thinking, I need a glass of Pinot Grigio, you can try Pinot Gris from Michigan and you will love it. The style of the cheese is that it is Dutch in style because it is a Gouda, meaning it has an undertone of caramel, which works good with the fruitiness and aromatics of the Pinot Gris. I think this is a great combination, and I think the little bit of smoke really adds a bit of intrigue to the cheese. Also want to mention that every one of the cheeses that you're seeing today is cut in a different shape. I do this because I feel that the flavor of the cheese is accentuated by the shape that you put it in. Plus I put the rind on the end so the guest can pick up the cheese from the rind and not eat it if he doesn't want to. Speaking of rind, don't worry about it. Most rinds are perfectly good to eat. If it's plastic, don't eat it. Okay, our final cheese is a wonderful cheese from Old European Cheese Company. This is a 7-month-old aged Gouda. So here's a good question. Why would we age cheeses? What's the purpose? The idea of an aged cheese is that it develops over time and gives the cheese a special characteristic. In Italy, this characteristic is called grana. What grana means is granular or crunchy. The longer you age a cheese, the more grana develops. So in the case of this particular cheese, you're going to feel a little bit of crunch when you have the cheese. A great combination with this is the Arturo's Chardonnay Sur Lie. By the way, that word Sur Lie down there is very interesting. It means that the winemaker is leaving the dead yeast cells in the wine to develop an additional flavor. Whenever you see that word, it means this guy is doing the classical French technique that happens in the Loire Valley. I think this combination is wonderful. All of these wines go well with all of these cheeses, so don't worry if you're picking one or another. Wine and cheese are the perfect pairing. They never go wrong. And remember the principles. Country to country. If you're doing an Italian cheese, go ahead and get some Italian wine. French cheese, French wine. Michigan cheese, Michigan wine. Don't forget, wine and cheese pairing is the ultimate easiest thing to do when you're entertaining. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Vino Talk with John Jonah. My job is to educate, to elucidate, and let you know about the wonderful world of wine. So please send us your comments, send us your suggestions, and send us your questions. I will answer any question you want, but we need to know what you want to know, what you want to learn. Please let us know. Aboutresante.